Hello everyone, my name is Luke. Welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a very serious video. I've done a couple of these type of videos on my channel, but the topic of this video is very serious. There will be no jokes, no humor in this video, because the topic of this video is something that I don't think should be joked about and something that should not be taken lightly. The topic of this video is extremely serious, and it is a very sad topic. These days, mental illness is at an all-time high. And if you yourself struggle with any mental illness, then you know what I'm talking about, and you know how it feels to struggle with mental illness. Now, the title of this video, and I'm sure you guys read it, that's why you clicked on it. I don't want anyone to think that I think that ADHD is the only severe mental illness. I understand things like depression, OCD, all those other ones, schizophrenia, all that. I understand that those mental illnesses are also very severe. Every mental illness is severe. Anything that can mess with your head and drain the life out of you, anything that could do that is going to be serious to me. Okay, so I don't want anyone to think that I think that ADHD is the only serious mental illness and all the other ones are not too serious, because they are. But the thing that makes ADHD so much worse is how it really affects someone. The amount of things that ADHD does to a person is downright horrific. All of the symptoms, all of the things it does, like, there are symptoms that are actually connected to ADHD that I would have never assumed. But that proves my point. ADHD affects people in so many ways. It's not a very simple mental illness. It's actually the opposite. ADHD might very well be the most complicated and difficult mental illness out there. Yes, depression is bad too. I struggle with that myself, but I struggle with depression because of my ADHD. People who don't have ADHD but struggle with depression, they are in a much better scenario of getting help, because depression is just simply not as bad as ADHD, in my opinion. Or maybe it's not an opinion at that point. Maybe it's just the way I feel. Mental illness affects everyone differently. Everyone is affected by it in different ways because our brains work in different ways. So I understand that everyone is affected by it in different ways. Maybe you have depression and you're struggling just as much as I am. Maybe you have depression and it's not as bad like mine, because my depression is not as bad. I struggle with depression because I struggle with the ADHD. They're directly linked, but that's what I meant when I said earlier that ADHD affects you in so many different ways. It's not a simple mental illness. It affects people in many different ways, and that's what makes it such a severe mental illness, because it's not a very simple one. Any mental illness that is as complicated as ADHD should be severe, should be known as a severe mental illness, and it is. I'm glad that people know how severe ADHD is. If you yourself struggle with ADHD, then you know what I'm talking about. But that's just the thing though. Even others with ADHD don't have the same symptoms that others have. Some people with ADHD, like maybe you, for example, like whoever's watching this video, maybe you have ADHD. Maybe that's why you're watching this video. Maybe you're just looking for someone to relate to on the internet. I could relate to that myself. Maybe you have ADHD and maybe your symptoms are completely different to mine. Maybe you just got the lack of focus, but maybe you're just more hyper. I got that myself, but for me, my symptoms are a lot more severe. My ADHD is a lot worser. I have the more worser form of ADHD. I have the lack of focus. I have the lack of dopamine levels. I have the hyper thing as well. The restlessness. I got that as well, but that symptom is not as severe. I mean, it's more of an annoying symptom, not as annoying as the previous symptom I mentioned. The lack of focus, the lack of dopamine. I consider those two symptoms to be the most severe. You can't enjoy your life if you can't do the things that you enjoy in the first place. You can't have a happy life if you can't do the things that make you happy in the first place. And that's what ADHD does. That's why I see it as being such a severe mental illness. again, as I'm making a comparison to depression, I know that people with depression don't really want to do anything. They're just miserable and all that stuff, and they just feel sad all the time. That's definitely bad, yeah, but you see, I'm not depressed. I'm depressed because I can do the things that I want to enjoy. See, people with depression, they don't do the things they want to enjoy because they don't feel like it. They don't want to do it. They don't have the motivation. They don't want to do things that they enjoy anymore. You know, they lose interest. And you know what's the bad part? I have that same thing. That's why I believe ADHD is worse than depression. Because the symptoms of ADHD are just a lot more painful. It's a lot more psychological pain than depression. The worst with depression is you're just sad all the time and you're just miserable and you're lonely. I understand that. I've talked to a lot of people with depression, and some of my friends even have depression. That's where I've got some of my information from. But you see, ADHD, it makes you depressed because it actually does all those things to you. You see, me, I want to try and enjoy my activities. I want to try and enjoy the hobbies that I used to enjoy when I was younger. And I still can enjoy sometimes. I want to, but my ADHD won't let me. My ADHD directly stops me from enjoying almost all of my activities and all of the hobbies that used to make me happy. And that's why I am depressed. I'm depressed because I can't be happy because my ADHD won't let me. And I think anyone who struggles with the same form of ADHD that I have, I'm pretty sure you're going through the same thing. Because like I said earlier, one of the reasons why I see ADHD as being as severe as it is because it affects people in so many different ways. Someone with ADHD like myself could have the completely different effects. They may go through the completely different symptoms as me. Maybe they don't have as many symptoms as I do. Maybe they only have one or two. There's even a different there's even something called minor ADHD. It's where you have ADHD, but it's not as bad yet. You only have like one or two symptoms of it. I wish I had that, because me, I have the worst form of it. Like I said earlier, how are you supposed to be happy in life if you can't do the things that make you happy in life? You can't. Not with ADHD, because ADHD stops you from doing so. Let me tell you some of the symptoms that I struggle with, so that way you guys can understand, because one thing about all mental illnesses in general is it's a very misunderstood thing. It's a very misunderstood topic. Some people think of it more cliche-like, you know, people with mental illness are, you know, crazy, they're psychotic, they're narcissists, all that good stuff. And others just don't understand it at all. Like, you could tell someone about mental illness and they probably won't know what the hell you're talking about. So it's a very misunderstood thing. So just like my father, let me explain it to you guys, and hopefully you won't be like my father and think I'm just a crazy person, and hopefully you guys will actually listen. One of the symptoms that I experience, just like I was telling you guys earlier, is I can't focus on anything. It may not sound that bad when I put it like that, but trust me, it is. How are you supposed to enjoy doing something you like if your mind won't even let you focus on it? How are you supposed to focus on what you're doing, what you like to do, what you want to do, if your mind won't even let you pay attention to it, won't even let you focus on it? It's one of the symptoms I have, and it's the one that's been bothering me for the most time now. It's like the main symptom, you know? It's like, out of all the other symptoms I have, that one is like the main guy. It's like the main villain in a superhero story. Like, there could be like some side villains, but like, it's the big bad, you know? That's what it's like with me. Like, that's the big bad, you know? That's the main symptom I'm struggling with right now. I can't focus on anything. I've said this before in my previous video about my mental illness, and back then I didn't even know what it was. I actually recently found out I had ADHD, but it turns out that I had it all my life. That a bitch. But anyways, one of my favorite hobbies is watching movies. And no, I don't watch anime. I don't watch Netflix. I'm old school, you know. I like to just watch normal movies, you know. I'm a movie guy. I've always been a huge movie guy. And every time I try and watch, like, you know, a movie, my mind just won't let me pay attention to it. Like, I get these thoughts, and they're like random thoughts. Like, they come completely out of nowhere, and it could be a thought about literally anything. It could be a thought about a conversation I was having earlier, or it could be a thought about a game I was playing earlier, or just anything random. It could be something as small as like something I was reading inside of an article. You know, my mind it's like it's trying to distract me on purpose. It won't let me focus on purpose, and it uses those thoughts. It uses thoughts to prevent me from focusing on the film. Before you say anything, it's not just the movies. It's literally anything. I try and play a video game, I can't focus on it, which makes it harder to play that game. I try and read, won't let me focus on it. I try and talk to someone, they try talking back to me. Half the time, I can't even pay attention to what they're saying because my mind won't let me. That's the main symptom I've been going through, and that's actually one of the more well-known symptoms of ADHD. So that's one of the symptoms that people actually know about. Like, if you was to look up ADHD right now, that would probably be one of the symptoms that would pop up. You know, the lack of focus, etc., etc. For me, it's so severe because I can't enjoy my hobbies. I can't enjoy what makes me happy in life because my mind won't even let me. How am I supposed to focus on it? How am I supposed to focus on what makes me happy if my mind won't even let me pay attention to it? Won't even let me focus on it. I can't even focus on it because my mind won't let me. I can't even pay attention to it. It's like I forget about what I was trying to do sometimes. Like, I try and watch a movie and I forget why I'm even watching it in the first place because my mind is so distracted that I forget. And it's not just for movies, just like I said. Sometimes I could be talking to someone and they could be talking back. I could be trying to have a conversation with someone and my mind is racing so fast with these thoughts and like with all this random shit that I can't even stay on the topic of what that person's talking to me about, or I can't even focus on the conversation that I'm trying to have. And sometimes when I'm talking to them, I can't even stay on topic, you know? I guess it's like part of the attention thing. It's both a lack of focus and an attention problem. God, I look just like Carlos from Resident Evil 3. I don't know why I said that, but I guess the hair, but oh god. Anyways, that's one of the symptoms that I'm having trouble with right now. Anyways, anyone who struggles with ADHD knows how bad this is. This problem affects me personally with playing video games, watching movies, and reading. But it can also affect you things like work or school, stuff like that. It can affect you with things like that too. A lot of the kids who are, kids who go to school, like me too. I mean, I'm homeschooled, but same thing. I mean, kids also struggle with that as well. Like, how are you supposed to focus on reading and all that stuff? Or like, doing like all that school stuff. Like, how are you supposed to focus on it if your mind won't even let you? Like, how? Like, personally, like when I'm trying to, like, I have this thing where, like, when I'm trying to write something, sometimes I forget how to spell. It's weird, but it turns out this is actually another disorder, but it's linked directly to ADHD. And that's what I meant when I was saying earlier. ADHD has so many symptoms. You could have one of these symptoms and you may not even know you have ADHD, but it turns out you did because there's so many symptoms to determine what it may or may not be. And that's why, to me, ADHD is as bad of a mental illness. Why I'm saying it is because there's so many symptoms. You've got the lack of focus, you've got the attention problem, you've got the hyperactivity, you've got all this other stuff that's not even well known. Like, there could be symptoms that could be symptoms of something else, but it could also be a symptom of ADHD because it turns out it was linked to that. And that's what I mean when I said that it affects you in so many ways. It doesn't just affect you in one way like OCD and depression. It affects you in so many different ways. And it's hard to determine what it may be. Which also makes it harder to treat it. If you actually could, find a way to treat it. I know there's medication, counseling, therapy, all that stuff, etc., but still. Another symptom that I've been experiencing is a lack of dopamine. If you don't know what this is basically the chemical inside of our brains that make us feel good, feel happy. It makes us like pursue rewards. Like for example, when you're playing a video game, when you're doing good in a video game, or like you're like playing catch outside, and you're playing baseball and you get a home run. Dopamine is what makes you feel happy and rewarded. It makes you feel good. ADHD directly impacts the dopamine levels of someone with ADHD. It directly impacts your dopamine levels. So essentially, I'm not really happy. Even if the lack of focus, even when I'm not always experiencing that lack of focus, sometimes I don't even enjoy doing the things I used to like to do. And again, that's what makes ADHD worse than depression. That lack of dopamine, that lack of the lack of wanting to do anything. To be honest, ADHD is almost like a more severe version of depression. Now that you think about it, but it's just got more severe symptoms. Can you please get out of here? Okay, just ignore him. Anyways, I don't have any dopamine basically. I do, but it's a lot more difficult for me to actually feel happy these days. Like when I was younger, I used to love watching movies a lot. Like when I was a little boy, you could put me in front of a screen, a TV, and put on any movie, whether it was a horror movie, a superhero movie, a cartoon, anything, and I would sit in front of that screen for hours on end, just watching, And ever since then, I've always loved movies and TV. So sometimes, even when I don't have the lack of focus, because sometimes it dies down a little bit. Sometimes that lack of focusing, sometimes it dies down a little bit. Sometimes even when it does, I still can enjoy my hobbies. I still can enjoy the things that used to make me happy, because ADHD directly impacts my dopamine levels. So things just don't make me as happy as they used to. Even video games, like one of my all-time favorite hobbies of all time. I even made a video about it, how much I love video games. Sometimes I have trouble even finding enjoyment out of that. So between the lack of dopamine levels and the lack of focus, these two symptoms alone already make ADHD one hell of a serious mental illness because of how it impacts someone. Because these two symptoms alone is enough to make anyone miserable. It's enough to make anyone sad. It's enough to make anyone depressed. Because ADHD is essentially shutting the door on you when you try to literally do anything in life that makes you happy in life. It directly slams that door right on your face and just says, no, you can't do that. No, just sit down and be miserable and focus on me, because you can't focus on anything else. Because with my ADHD, that's all I'm focused on. That's all I think about. How am I going to cure it? How am I going to fix it? What am I going to do, Sometimes I don't even care about doing the things I used to do anymore. The fun things I used to like to do. Something as simple as watching a movie or trying to play a video game and, just pass the time. Anything. Don't even care anymore. What's the sense? If I have to fight with my own mind just for me to enjoy something, what's the point? What's the point in even trying? And someone else with ADHD may not experience these type of symptoms, or maybe you do, but maybe they don't impact you as much as they do me. To me, it's a huge impact. The reason why the lack of focus is so bad for me is because it directly stops me from doing things that I like to do, and even important things. It won't let me focus on anything. And then of course you've got the lack of dopamine and the lack of focus. Like it's so bad. It's so bad. It's nearly unstoppable. There's nothing you could do. Nothing at home anyways. Like there's nothing at all you could do. Trust me, I've tried everything and none of it works. I'm not even sure if medication will work. They say that medication works differently for some people. Some people it works good with, some people it doesn't work so good with. I don't know. But this is why, to me, ADHD is such a severe mental illness. There's other symptoms of ADHD that I am fortunate enough to not struggle with, but those two symptoms I mentioned earlier is already bad enough. So I'm glad, I'm actually lucky that I don't have anything else right now. Except for one. Now this is something that actually surprised me. But it turns out that anger issues are tied directly to ADHD as well. There's so many things that I had no idea or would have never assumed were actually tied to ADHD, but fuck me, they were. Anyways, anger is tied directly to ADHD. And I guess that answers a question that I asked myself earlier. Why am I such an angry prick all the time? At first, I told myself maybe it's because I'm struggling as much as I am. Because they say that when you're struggling and going through depression, anger is, a lot worser. But I'm not sure if this is how your guys' anger works. Let me know. Let me know if your anger is felt in a more psychological way or a physical way. Because my anger is felt in both a psychological way and a physical way. I get this feeling in my stomach. There's 3 stages of my anger. At least I think there are. I'm not entirely sure, but I've determined that there's 3 stages of my anger. The first stage is minor frustration. Something frustrates me and I start getting these thoughts in my head about, this thing that made me frustrated. I get these thoughts in my head that, where I start thinking about, this thing that made me frustrated, and I start having regrets. I start telling myself, why am I doing this? If this is making me mad, why do I do this? And then I start getting impatient. I start getting more aggressive, and I just want to walk away. That minor frustration. The second stage is what I call anger, pure anger. This is where I start getting extremely impatient. I start talking louder, and I start having these thoughts in my head about what I could do to stop this now. I immediately start thinking of ways to stop whatever's making me angry, because then that's where the feeling in my stomach comes. I'm then accompanied by this feeling in my stomach, and it's not really pain. It kind of feels like pain, but at the same time, it feels just a really uncomfortable feeling, right? So I'm accompanied by that, and I then get the thoughts because of the feeling in my stomach, because it doesn't feel good. And I think that's my anger. I think that's how my anger works. I think it works in my stomach. That's how my anger works personally. I feel it in my stomach. It starts building up in my stomach, and that's why I get those thoughts in my head about how I could stop whatever's making me angry. So I start getting impatient. I start, becoming more aggressive. I start becoming a lot more aggressive than before, and I start becoming not really violent, but more rude. Just more rude. And then the most dangerous stage, which is pure berserk. This is what scares me the most. Honestly, this is the thing that scares me the most, because the third stage, where I go just full on berserk, the thoughts in my head, they're gone. The thoughts in my head are gone, and reality, everything that I see, it's like I tap out of reality for a minute. Everything I see doesn't matter to me anymore. All I care about is destroying things. It's literally the equivalent of blind fury. I just want to destroy everything I see, whether it's furniture, windows, people. I have hurt people before when I was in this stage. I can't remember who it was. I think it was some kid that I got into a fight with outside. I'm pretty sure I broke his jaw or something. That's what they said I did anyways, or I broke his arm. I honestly can't remember. I was only 5 years old at the time, but even then I had this symptom. Because one thing I forgot to mention is I have had ADHD since I was a kid. Since I was, a little guppy. It just wasn't as bad as it was then than it is now. But back to what I was saying, the third stage of my rage is the one that scares me the most, because it's like I'm tapped out of reality, so I don't know what I'm gonna do. And I've destroyed and ruined so many things in my life because of this blind fury like rage that I go through. And the thing in my stomach, the sensation that I told you guys about earlier, at that point, it is painful. It's not like, throbbing pain or anything like that. It's just like, and it's not sharp pain either. It's like just really uncomfortable, tightening pain. It's like my muscles within, it's like the muscles within my stomach, or like my organs are like all just like, crumbling up all together. And it feels so bad. Like, it's like, that's what makes me go berserk. Like, that's what my rage is to me. Like me, my rage is not, it's not mentally, it's physically. I feel my rage and my berserkness in my stomach. And the only thing I feel mentally is like the thoughts. Like, I get these thoughts about how I could either destroy things, how I could stop whatever made me angry, or how I could hurt whoever made me angry. And that's what scares me so bad. You see, that's one cliche about mental illness that people seem to think. People who are mentally ill are dangerous and they're killers and psychopaths. I'm not a psychopath, obviously. It's more of an emotion problem, because since ADHD fucks with my brain, it fucks with my emotions too, because the brain is like the main part of the body, besides the heart. So that's why it fucks with my emotions. So that's why you got the anger problem. And like I said, I have destroyed so many things in my life, so many important things, so many things that have made me regret, all because of it. And that's why I hate that I lose touch with reality when I go into that fury-like berserk state, because I don't know what I'm doing at that point. Only after it's already done, then I realize what I have done, and then that's where the guilt and the regret comes in. And I'm afraid that it's actually going to get me in a lot of serious trouble one day, or worst case scenario, prison for ripping out someone's throat. You guys want an example? Check this out. I'm not sure if you guys can see this, but check this out. This was my TV. A TV that I love. The TV that I had for a long time. Look what happened to it, all because of my rage. I'm not sure if you guys can see it. Did you guys see that? All that because of my rage. And again, this comes directly from ADHD. I was always an angry little child, an angry little boy, a sad, angry kid. But since my ADHD has progressed and has gotten worse with my age, I find myself getting angry a lot more easily these days. Back when I was a little kid, it took a hell of a lot of effort to make me angry. I was one of the happiest little boys you ever saw. I was a very happy little boy, not a care in the world. My childhood was amazing. It took a lot to make me angry, and when I did get angry, it was hell on earth. But as I've gotten older, it becomes so much, it's become so much easier to agitate me and get me angry. And that's also what has made me even, like, I find myself having an even harder time to enjoy playing video games. Like, we could use an example. Video games, like, remember how I said I love playing video games? Which I still do. Since my anger is a lot worser, I get agitated a lot more easily. And when you connect that with the lack of dopamine from the ADHD and the lack of focus, it's terrible. And you know what pisses me off the most about all this? I went to my doctor on the 8th of this month for a wellness checkup. I should have tried to get help earlier, but my stupid parents said I have to go to a doctor first. My doctor, my own personal doctor. So I did it. And this was in August. My doctor made me wait a month and a week just for a simple wellness checkup. So I wait. I tell myself it's going to be okay. I tell myself that I could hang on there a little bit longer to get help. I do it. I go to my doctor. He tells me what I want to hear. Now the next step, finding a therapist, finding help, finding a psychologist or whatever. That was on the 8th, weeks ago. Something that should have only taken me 2 to 3 days has taken me more than 2 weeks. Or more, or almost 2 weeks. Almost 2 weeks. Just to find a therapist and a psychologist. I don't know what the fuck is happening in this country, but if you're mentally ill and if you desperately need help and if you're not an adult, or if you don't have good insurance, or if you don't have money, you're gonna be in a pretty bad spot. I have insurance, yeah, but not every therapist or not every psychologist will accept it. Not every therapist or psychologist will accept teenagers. And some had the audacity to put me on a wait list. The fact that it is this difficult just to find a psychologist or a therapist these days is sickening. It has taken me more than a week just to find a therapist, and I still haven't. I'm still looking. I don't know what's happening in this country, but it's no wonder that mental illness is at an all-time high, because people are not getting the help that they need. Whether it's depression or whatever. I don't know what's going on here, but I still haven't found help. Because every psychologist and every therapist, office, or counseling that I contact, either they don't accept my insurance, or they put me on a wait list, or they say they'll accept me, and then they call back and say that there was a mistake and they don't really accept my insurance. Ain't that just a bad case of bad luck, ain't it? Well, I'm probably going to cut this video short. Thank you guys so much for watching.